Hello, annyeonghaseyo. Ryan Walters here, back in the K-League United bunker for the first time in a very, very long time, along with Matthew Binns and Scott Whitelock.
Hello.
Sitting in the close seat.
With the huge head.
It's just proportionate.
Yeah.
I mean, you might have a little bit of a
like
bigger head today after the events of last night.
Let's not mention that.
Oh, were we not mentioning?
I think Matt might be a bit sick.
I might cry, to be honest.
So for those of you tuning in that somehow are watching us but don't know what happened last night, the ACL quarterfinal, the All K-League ACL quarterfinal, finished up. Just a really uneventful second leg. Nothing much going on. Not much to talk about there. It's not like it was a goal fest that went to extra time and had penalty saves and all the other nonsense.
Yeah.
Anyway, hopefully you watched the match
it
because for a neutral fan like myself, it was an absolute delight, and hopefully there were some people watching abroad that look. Obviously, it was heartbreak for Denver,
but I mean, I don't think I could be. I don't know. I can't criticize. I mean, obviously I can criticize the poor penalties, but I don't think I can criticize any performances from John Buck in that second leg. The damage was done in the first leg. They did work wonders to pull it back. We honestly didn't think they'd have a chance. Well, we didn't think they would actually take it to penalties, and they came close to taking it all in 90 minutes if it wasn't for the Adriano penalty miss, or should we say Shin Hwa-young save. Yeah, it was just they were just outdone in the end, and they'd left everything on the pitch. Everybody put in 100% effort, and it's gutting, but that's the way football is. And yeah, well, good luck to Suwon, I guess, in the semi-finals.
What a gentleman! And we scraped him up off the pavement and made him sit next to a Suwon.
But Suwon Galbi is still terrible. It's actually overrated. It's quite nice, but it's overrated.
Suwon chicken's better.
Well, I should hope so. It's the home of the chicken wings.
Yeah, fine.
Anyway, we're not here to just talk about last night's affairs and make Matt feel shame for being a jumbo.
That's the only reason I came.
Fair enough. We can talk about how the team that was destined to win the treble is now out of 2 out of the 3 tournaments.
Only one trophy, right? You can win now.
Yeah, but I mean, we're going to actually win it.
Just the one. Just the one that you're about to win.
There's a certain team that's only 6 games away from winning 2 trophies.
Yeah.
John,
Yeah.
John, 2 trophies.
Yeah, they give you 2 for the FA Cup now.
I think you get one.
Do you get
you
get a wooden spoon for last place?
You
right?
get the playoff trophy.
Do they?
No, I don't think they give one, do they?
They don't. You don't get anything for just staying up. But we're going to talk about Jeonnam and all of the other teams because the real reason that we're here tonight is to run down the power rankings. The first power rankings of this year. We did a lot in the past, but this year they've been absent. We're happy to have those back, so we're going to run through those. But first, we have a couple of announcements, a few exciting things to go through. First and foremost, you might see this lovely green kit here in the background and these handsome gentlemen wearing it. We are now officially sponsoring FC Ints of the Seoul Saturday League, and they are wearing essentially the Nigeria kit, which was hands down the kit of the World Cup. So pretty happy to have our website on the front of there. And yeah, they're looking good doing it.
Mm-hmm.
We're rooting for promotion. Familiar territory for some of us. Just get to that first division and stay there. And if you're watching and you're a goalkeeper and you're thinking, I'd love to play some football on Saturdays, well, they're your guys. So get in touch with them. And otherwise, if it's a Saturday and there's no K-League, head on down to Anyang or wherever they're playing on the day and check out some we'll say lower division football. But the kits are lovely and we're happy to have it. So that's one thing. The other thing, speaking of events, things you might want to do, FIFA 19 comes out next week, gentlemen. Some exciting stuff there. And to celebrate, we're going to go back to Retro Game Bar for the first time in a little while.
Have they improved, have they worked out how to make me win on FIFA 19?
They have worked very hard. They have not been able to work any miracles yet.
But if you do fancy thrashing me at Retro Game Bar, I will be there. Giving people easy wins, as I normally do.
They have a no rules version now, so that might be good for a John Book support.
Oh, we have him on, so and
nice
this comes straight out.
Each other.
I like Paul when he talks about Dead John.
So we'll be back at RGB on the 7th of October playing our first ever FIFA 19 tournament. So if you want details about that, they are on the website right now. But those are always a lot of fun. all sorts of drink specials and other things, and good times. If you want to make one of us look like a fool even more than we usually do for you, then that's always good. Anyway, the real reason we're here, Alex Lee of Football Radar was kind enough to put together some power rankings for us, ranking all 12 K1 teams from first to last, and there are some surprises along the way. So if you haven't been able to check them out on the site yet, don't do it right now, but do it as soon as you're done watching and or listening. But we're going to run through each team. We're going to spend 3 minutes on each team. We're going to have a little bit of a general conversation about them, but we'll mostly be answering the questions of how the team got there, why they're rated the way they are in our eyes, the key player, either to get them out of that situation or keep them in that situation, and then we're going to say if they're going to go up or down in the next power rankings that we do. So, yeah, we'll see how we're feeling about each team. And as always, if you have any questions, comments, reactions, anything else to your team or other teams, get them in the comments while we're going, and we're going to answer them as we're going. So as soon as we finish up with one of the teams, if you got a question about them, get it in, and we'll be happy to answer it.
I'll try my best.
Yeah, and that's Matt's responsibility. I'm not on it. Not my problem. All right. Don't say this very often, but starting in last place, starting in 12th, for those of you watching on Facebook, it's hard to see, which is good for them. FC Seoul in last place. Look at the grin on the Suwon fan. So it's very interesting seeing them down here because after winning 3 in a row, they were in the top half of the table. It looked like they might even be challenging for an ACL spot, and then they just fell off of a cliff. It's been 4 losses and a draw in their past 5, and I think a little bit even more surprising than that, this is an FC Seoul squad that has scored 1 goal in those 5 games, just 1 goal, and that came in a 4-1 loss against Ulsan, so that wasn't exactly a meaningful goal there. They've actually failed to score in their previous 3 home matches as well, so the fans aren't exactly coming out in droves this year, and that's a big reason why. Paul Neat actually just put up a really good piece about Seoul losing their identity right now, and it couldn't be more accurate because this is a team that is absolutely without identity right now. They don't know what to do when they get the ball. They don't look like there's any cohesion, and there is just a lot of dead weight on this club right now. Park Chu-young was just given a 3-year contract coming into this year. He scored 1 goal this year, 1 goal for one of their marquee players. And I think that there's just a little bit of an old mentality following them around. Key player for them, it's got to be Yang Han-bin. I think if anybody is going to right the ship or at least keep them in a position where they can do something about it, he is a tremendous goalkeeper, and hopefully he can pull it out for them. And Go Yohan, their captain, is the one that might be able to help them out and push things forward because he's oddly enough leading the team in goals this year, which you wouldn't expect for somebody that plays as a midfielder. And if they're going to go up or down, and we'll get you guys in on this in a second, their remaining schedule is Gyeongnam, Incheon, who they've already lost to this year, Sangju, never know, and a Jeonnam side with something to play for and who's a little higher in the power rankings, and Jeju. Of those, Jeju is really the only team that I could see them beating. So for me, you can't go lower than 12, but I don't really see them moving up. I'll start with you because we're at the bottom of the table looking at Seoul, so how could I not go to a Suwon fan?
I find it really confusing because the times that I've seen Seoul this season, they've torn Suwon to pieces.
Right.
And Evandro and Anderson and Go Yohan have looked really impressive on the times that they've turned up against Suwon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's when they played the rest of the league when they've really fallen apart. I personally can't see them making the top half of the table before the league splits. I think there's only one way but down for Seoul. They probably have enough to keep out the relegation issue.
Well, it's actually we've got 15 seconds. I'm going to put it to you, Matt. Are they going to get dragged into the relegation battle?
Yes. No, I mean, unlike you, you've seen them beat Suwon and you've seen them beat your team. I've watched Jeonbuk thrash them. They are atrocious. Yeah. They've got no soul. They've got no soul. They've got Neat, our own Paul Neat has got an article on the website you should read. They'll go into more detail than I will.
Yeah, I just really wanted you to end on the pun of Seoul has no soul. Because on the back of the kit, it says Soul of Seoul. Not this year. Anyway, hopefully for those of us that enjoy going to those games and occasionally wear red and black, Hopefully, those of us that do that
Thanks.
we'll see a winter of a lot of change. But anyway, moving on down the line, up next, one of the teams that we were talking about, Seoul might actually be able to get a win over, the team that finished second last year. Jeju.
Go! Well, it's been an absolutely woeful season by their standards. Finished second in the league last season and impressed a lot of people with the style of football that they were playing. Unfortunately, they started the season badly. Disappointing ACL campaign where they finished bottom of their group, only getting 1 win and losing 5 games. And their season just pretty much carried on the same way all the way through. They're actually the lowest scoring team in the league at this point, which is really surprising when they were so good last season. Both of their foreign strikers, Magno Cruz and Thiago, have been really, really disappointing. Especially Magno's got 13 goals in the league last season, and he's only down to a really disappointing 6 this season, even though he plays most of the games. They lost Frederic Mendy and Marcelo last season, and they failed to replace that. Because of that, they're really, really struggling. They don't lose many games, but they're on a winless run of 13 games at the moment and only scored 8 goals in those 13 games. 13 games without a win. And they're just plummeting because of that. They still have the FA Cup to aim for, which is probably their only one shot of achieving something this season. But they could slip much further down the table. They're playing against Gangwon, Ulsan, Gyeongnam and Jeonnam before the split occurs. Their best player, they don't really have any. Well, I mean, it's sad to say, but there's no one that's really playing well.
Hi, Jeju fans.
What I would say the most influential person on the season has been the manager, Jo Sung-hwan. He's still playing the same style of football that won him so many plaudits last season, but without anybody to actually score the goals of that tiki-taka type football. It's just wasted football. He needs to find a different way to come up with something, and they need to do it really quickly.
So are they going to move up or down in the next power rankings?
I think down. I think they'll finish.
They'll take 12th.
I think not
in the power rankings.
Not necessarily 12th. I see their season playing out a little bit like Suwon in 2016, when Suwon were almost in the relegation equation, but their late season FA Cup form kind of lifted them out of it, and I can see Jeju's season kind of playing out that way.
Depending, though, they did not get an easy draw in the FA Cup.
They did not, but we all know Suwon are very good at home, so...
Well, we'll see. So that's one thing that Jeju's got to root for. Matt, how are you feeling about Jeju this season? Are they going to be able to pull out of this?
Yeah, I'm a bit shocked by him, just for the same reasons. The manager, he played so well last season, and he's just got no clue here. He's in freefall. He's not changing anything. He's not trying to fix the problems, and I can't see any way but down. But yeah, maybe if they finish bottom half of the split, they just might beat those teams around them, and then they can rebuild in the winter. I don't think the manager has long left.
It is weird to think that a team that was so good last year, that's so bad this year, still has a shot at ACL, but they do. And they might be, like you say, they might be able to pull that off. For those down in Jeju, they hope so anyway. Speaking of that FA Cup, we're going to keep moving on here, and we're going to move on to the team that's just above them in the power rankings. A team that had a good night last night, but hasn't necessarily been doing so hot in the season. And we've got a weird warning going on for this. Suwon Blue and Scott.
That's a disaster, and so is Suwon's season, unless they win 2 of the remaining cups that they're left in. It's been really, really disappointing in the league for Suwon. Sitting in 4th place. They're 7 points behind Ulsan in the last ACL qualification place, and it's looking really difficult for them to catch Ulsan up, who are playing really well at the moment. An awful drop-off in their away form has probably seen them slip out of that ACL qualification race. They're now 7 away league games without a win in the league, which is really surprising, right? Suwon have been so strong away from home for the last 2 years, and their strong away form has carried them through the last 2 seasons when they've been so poor at home. They've struggled to find consistent goal scorers until Summer Dayan turned up. Dayan, I'm pronouncing that properly, right? Summer Dayan turned up. He's now on 10 with 1 assist for the season, but nobody else is really stepping up. There's single goal scorers, double goal scorers strung throughout the team. The clearest person close to Dayan is Young Kyung with 6 goals and 4 assists, which flatters him really. He's not had the greatest of seasons, but they're still in the FA Cup. And they're still in a certain continental competition, thanks to Che Kang-hee never practicing penalties. And their season's entirely reliant upon those two competitions. If they can win one of those competitions, then winning any sort of cup is a successful season. I do expect their league form to drop off as they focus on the cup competitions. They've got Jeonbuk, Gangwon, Ulsan, Sangju and Pohang before the split. I don't expect that they'll finish out the top half before the split, but that's something to be careful of.
I mean, in a season like this with Jeonbuk so far in advance, if you were Suwon, to put you in their shoes less than 24 hours after last night, would you just kind of concede the league?
I would have conceded last night's second leg in the Champions League. But personally,
I think they tried to at one point.
Yeah, they tried their best. But no, I think they're probably best off going for the cup. The best chance of qualification is always through the league, though. I mean, the cup is a cup. It can be a bit of a lottery at times. You just need one bad result to go against you. They can still build up form in the league, but I don't think the caretaker manager really seems to know what he's doing. From what I've seen of him, he's mixed formations up a lot. He's still testing, and he is what he is. He's a caretaker manager. He was thrown into this position by So Jung-won's sudden departure, and I can't see things getting better in the league. But Suwon do seem to be a kind of a cup team usually, especially in the FA Cup, and they can salvage the season. They're low in these rankings. They may go down in these rankings, but these rankings don't account for cup competitions, and I think that's what will make their season.
Ooh, you were almost there, so I'm just going to let that 5 seconds play out and we'll ruminate on that one. That's what it's supposed to sound like at the beginning as well, by the way. I don't know what's going on there. Speaking of not knowing what's going on, a team in all sorts of flux is up next. Sangmu. Matt's going to talk about the military team. That's what it's supposed to sound like.
Well, it's because I'm one. That's why.
Yeah.
You can't talk about the military team without talking about the autumn exodus. And as usual, Sangmu have lost their players in August. Lots of key players have left, but I don't think that this can be an excuse this time around, because they took the unusual step for a military team anyway, of taking a summer intake, and not just any summer intake. They took defenders and midfielders from teams around them. They took players from Jeonnam, and they it's just not the same as the previous years. They should still be doing better. They've still got a reasonable sized roster, whereas last year in the playoffs they were struggling to make a full bench.
Yeah.
This year they've got lots to choose from, and they just can't get it to work. The manager Kim Tae-won, he's struggling to get it to click. They've actually only won twice in the last 14 games, and that includes a 6-game losing streak at one point. Their recent form suggests they are halting the slide gradually. They've had a win recently and 2 losses, 2 draws. But it's not enough. It's not fast enough. The teams around them are also finding form. Incheon's finding form. Jeonnam seem to have found goals all of a sudden. And they could find themselves being dragged into this. Also, with Asan Mugunghwa disbanding, the importance of staying in K-League 1 for a military side is bigger than ever. Yeah. We need it staying there because we need these young players to be playing the highest level football that they can be playing while they're on loan here, and it looks like that could be going out the window with Asan leaving and Sangju going down. Anyway, key player Yoonbik Garam, the man who you can sing his name to YMCA, but better than that, he's been a mainstay in the side this season, and he's racked up 5 goals, which is the second highest in the team, and he's got 2 assists, which is also the highest in the team. That's mainly because people have left. That's not because he's been the best. He has been a standout player, but players with higher stats than him have disappeared in the last month. Only Shim Dong-un from Pohang has got more goals than him, with 7. Up or down? Down. Keep going down. They're an outside bet for relegation, I'd say.
I don't even think it's really that outside at this point. The form that they're in, with the way that Incheon and Jeonnam are playing right now, and we'll obviously get to them in a little bit because they're higher up, finally, in something. The way they're playing right now compared to how Sangju is playing right now, I actually have them picked to be the team that's in the automatic drop because they just can't buy a win right now. Mm-hmm. They're just not finding anything that's working, and right now, Jeonnam and Incheon and Daegu are. And I see all of those teams leapfrogging Sangju at this point.
Yeah. I think they're in dire straits. There's an absolute mess there in Sangju, I think. And
I completely agree, and I kind of hope they do go down.
Yeah, I mean,
it's hard to support an army team.
Yeah,
especially when the Dragons are one of the teams that are in trouble down there. I think we had a question come in about Suwon, I believe.
Yeah, I was about to get to it. So Jung Kim, he's come in with a question about Suwon, whether they can go all the way in the ACL.
I mean, is that a legitimate question? I thought we all knew that it was already in the stars.
Yeah.
No,
because Kashima, that'll be
mean,
easy.
It's not easy, but I mean, Suwon have already played them twice in the group stages. The home game, they were very unlucky to lose. They dominated the entire game. And the away game, we all know what happened. They pulled off the great escape. I think we talked about it, me and Matt talked about it in the podcast that we did leading up to the quarterfinals. They just keep putting themselves in bad positions and they keep getting themselves out of it.
Yep.
They're not... Well, they are talented. They are a talented squad, but they're not showing it in the moment in the performances. They've got a lot of offensive weapons. They've got a lot of midfield weapons. I think they can give anyone a good game. I think over 2 legs they've got a chance against Kashima. The issue would probably be the final. Alstad looked very strong on their side of the draw. I expect it that Suwon will beat Kashima over 2 legs. The final, I don't know. It's a toss of a coin.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think personally, I'm done betting against Suwon in cup competitions because they can just pull it out and beat anyone on their day. So I just done doing that.
They're not having a good time in the league, but one thing that I'll commend them on is just their spirit and fight in every single game that they play. It's really, you can see it. It means a lot. It starts from the front with Dayan and it spreads throughout the entire team. Last night they didn't play well, but the reason they got through it is they just fought for everything.
Yeah. One final question about Suwon, and it's just from our very own Muyol. Regarding Suwon, which competition do you think team will prioritise the most? Which do you think the team will go for?
Well, I mean, the league's a write-off now. I think everyone can see that the league's a write-off.
It's got to be ACL, right?
Yeah, I mean,
because FA Cup, that's nice, but that's got to be a consolation prize at this point.
Well, I mean, I think you have to target both. I mean, they're not going to be playing. FA Cup is not going to interfere with their playing time in the ACL, so they really have to target both. Even if they win the ACL, they won't play in it next year if they don't qualify through the league. The winners of the ACL don't get an entry berth. If they win the FA Cup, they will be playing in the ACL, and that's so important. Yeah, it's really, really important.
That's a good point.
So they have to target both, and they just have to write the league off. I'm afraid that's just how it's going to be.
Doesn't everyone at this point?
Unless you're Ulsan, maybe just write it off. Ulsan, Incheon, Daegu, Sangju all have something to play for. Everyone else is just sort of making up the numbers until next season, I think.
Yeah. All right. Anything else? We're moving on.
Let's move on.
All right. So, last one, I believe, in the bottom 6. Anyway, math is hard. Moving on to a team that's also had a bit of a rough go, and the speaker's also having a rough go. So on to Gangwon, and they got to this point in the power rankings by being very consistently inconsistent. This is a team that hung 7 on Incheon this year, won that game 7-0, and then a couple weeks later, they couldn't put one past Daegu or Seoul. Weird saying Seoul in that sentence, but again, they've been a bit rough this year. Their 47 goals against is 3rd worst in the league. This is a team that just cannot keep the ball out of the back of their own net. Only Jeonnam and Incheon are worse. Even with 6 clean sheets this season, so it's been very all or nothing with Gangwon. So in spite of all those goals conceded, they do have 6 clean sheets from former national team fringe player Lee Bum-young, but he hasn't really been the lockdown presence at the back that I think they expected to get when they brought him back from J-League. And additionally, 27-year-old Australian defender Dylan McGowan was brought in to kind of be the rock in that back line. He hasn't played since July, and that absence has just really, really been felt back there. They can't hold on to leads. But in spite of all of this, they score a lot of goals. Even conceding 47 goals, they still just have a -2 goal difference this year, which is insane. Largely down to Uros Deric, who has 23 goals, is leading the Golden Boot race as an MVP candidate. He's the reason that this team isn't lower down, and to be honest, maybe even in the relegation battle, which leading into the key player, it can't be anyone other than Deric. He's just having a phenomenal season. and they're going to go as far as his multiple goal games can carry them, because he has to score more than once if they're going to win. Because recently he did net against Sangju, which was his first in a little over a month. But he only scored once, and so it wasn't enough, and they had a very surprising loss to Sangju. So when it comes to this team moving up or down, it's hard to tell. It depends on the day for them. But the fact that they're still in the top half of the table, in spite of how they've played right now, I think they're going to be moving down in the table and in the power rankings. They are only 2 points away from Daegu in 10th place right now, and I don't see them keeping that lead.
Yeah, I think their position in the table says more about the teams below them than it does about the team about themselves. They don't seem to have moved from last season, in my opinion. They've invested a lot, and they've now changed the manager, but there's still goals scored, goals conceded. They just can't get it together. I don't really know what they are as an entity. I'm just a bit confused by them. Like, are they world beaters? Are they supposed to be in for ACL, or are they supposed to just be pushing for a top half? They talk a good game, but we look at them on the pitch, and sometimes I just think they're like a high budget Seoul Leland.
Wow.
Ending it there. Not going to top that.
Ouch.
Just ending it there. I don't even know how to transition from that one. Just... he said with a Seoul Eland scarf looming over him. So we're just gonna transition right into that one. Up next, we have a team that is looking more like their old selves this year. Oh, that speaker. Pohang. Scott's got them.
Well, they've not really had a bad season, but kind of below expectations. I don't know. You don't know what to think about Pohang. They have a rich history, but they've not been that very good recently. Their recent forms allowed them to climb the table, and they're now just 4 points behind Suwon in 4th place, but 11 points behind Ulsan in 3rd place. So realistically, they're completely out of the chase for ACL places. Consistency has been their problem, much like Gangwon. They've only been able to string together consecutive wins on 2 occasions this season, which is really disappointing. The one thing I would say for Pohang is they look better going into next season than they've been this season. The emergence of Lee Gun-ho, young player this season, has been really good. He's got 3 goals, 3 assists. He looks like it could be a real find. And the form of Kim Sung-dae and Song Sung-min in midfield hints that they could do something better than next season. I think Alex mentioned it in the actual article for Power Rankings. The new signings, summer signings, Lee Suk-hyun and Kim Ji-min have been really good. They've hit the ground running. They've contributed to a lot of the good work that Pohang are doing at the moment. They're out of the FA Cup, so the season is completely over.
Thanks to Jeonnam.
The best they can hope for is climbing up to 4th before the season's over. They play against Incheon and Sangju, Daegu, Gangwon and Suwon before the split. I can see them winning at least 2 of those games. I could see them winning. So 4th is not beyond them. Anything else probably is.
But 4th could be enough for ACL, depending on who gets the cup.
Well, yeah, that is true.
So that might work out for them. And I think this is a team that we would like to see them back in ACL. They're a traditional powerhouse in that competition. One player that you did mention that I've been impressed with watching them every time is their young goalkeeper, Kang Hyung-moo, who's just been locked down. Really great shot stopper, as most young keepers. He needs to work on coming off of his line a little bit more, maybe organizing the back line a little bit better, but just a pure shot stopper that keeps them in a lot of games. It's been a lot of fun to watch this year, and it's like you're saying, I think going into next year, Pohang is having a little bit better of a season than I think maybe expected this year, and going into next year, I think they're going to be doing even better. Yeah.
I can see them challenging for the top 3 next season.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to see one of the traditional power teams come back up there and maybe challenge.
They always start well, and that's the thing. They can never hold it together for a season. They always look like we always say May, Pohang, this is the year, and they tail off. I'd like to, if they can sustain it till midsummer or this time next year, and they're still up there, then we can really start talking about it. But they just tail off so much, Pohang, and
we could just leave it as sustained, because, like you were saying, they can't string together those wins right now. Yeah, that's what the speaker's supposed to sound like. All right, it's going to screw it up for me now, because we are moving into the top half of the power rankings, and a team that's very surprisingly been at the top half of the table for most of the year. Don't know what's going on. Anyway, talking Gyeongnam FC, they are still holding on to second place and an ACL berth. They were very close to being higher on this list, on the power rankings, if not for their current 3-match winless streak, which was almost a 3-match losing streak, if not for some very late heroics from Marcao. But the less we talk about that, the better. The two teams that started this slide for them are two teams that they've really struggled against this year. That's represented on the other side of this table for me, Suwon and Jeonbuk. Gyeongnam, it's not surprising that they can't get past two of the traditional powerhouses in their first year back in the first flight since 2014, but I think they'll be pretty annoyed by that, and it's not that surprising that this slide started against Suwon and Jeonbuk, especially when potential Golden Boot winner Marcao was out for those games, and they need him in their lineup. They are not the same team without him. They just really, really rely on him, which makes him the obvious choice for the key player here. But I think they lean on him to a fault. Whoever's doing the scouting at Gyeongnam, by the way, someone give that person or people a raise, because wow. They found Marcao when he was doing nothing, and then this year, two key players for them, Kunimoto, who's 20 years old, Japanese player, came over, and Negiba, another young, talented Brazilian. Those guys had no stats to speak of coming over. They've been really good this year, but they need to step up and do a little bit more to take some of that pressure off of Marcao, because the team just really, really can't do much if he's not banging in goals. Another player that I've been impressed with, maybe not a key player for them, but very close, is Sun Jung-hyun, who has 9 clean sheets this year. That's good enough for third in the league, which is a little bit surprising because when you think about Gyeongnam, we typically think about their attack and their offense. So for a keeper to be having that good of a season for a team that's that focused on moving forward is really impressive. And whether or not they're going to move up or down, they're not going to move up in the table. that gap is too big. But in these power rankings, I would expect them to move up in the power rankings. They have matches against Seoul, Daegu, Incheon, Jeju, and Sangju remaining before the split, and they could win all of those. You know, you wouldn't necessarily pick against them in any of that. So I think in the power rankings, they're scheduled to move up. Yeah. Only left you guys 20-some seconds here.
Then.
I'd love them to really go on and do well in the ACL next season.
Wouldn't that be fun?
Just for the fact that maybe more K-League teams would scout Japanese players. I really enjoy watching Kunimoto. He's been one of the highlights of the season for me. Plus, you signal out Marcao, but I love watching Kunimoto.
Kunimoto's been a delight to watch. And
I think we need more young Japanese players in K-League. It's a market that's untapped.
Yeah, no reason not to. And last thing before we move on, I hope they do well, because this is a team that has refused to stop playing attacking football. And if they finish a convincing second playing that brand, maybe some of these other teams will start picking it up and start playing a little bit more aggressive attacking football, which would just be lovely.
Definitely.
I see we've got Lex Nande in the comments here. Is this any? Are we getting? Are we getting the Lex here? Are we getting the Lex?
Yeah, sure. I was about to say. So first, Lex says the guy at Gyeongnam was the same guy that found Daein when he was at Incheon. I don't know if that's true. Then fair play to him. Then he's clearly got an eye for talent.
Clearly.
He also says Gyeongnam's Lee Bom-soo was always in the shadow behind his brother Lee Bom-young at Gangwon. But is this the first time the little bro is the star?
Yeah. Gyeongnam's been a fun team to watch on the pitch, and there are a ton of really interesting, really good stories for that team off of the pitch this year. And again, I think we're all kind of rooting for Gyeongnam, right? Because they don't necessarily have a heated rivalry of anything to talk about right now.
Yeah.
And
the less said about that, I think, the
better. I mean, this year. Anyway, we're going to move right on. Moving into teams that may be on the bottom of the table, but they are towards the top of the power rankings. Starting with the team that is at the bottom of the table right now, but has been playing some really good football of late. We have Incheon United, and I believe Matt is going to tell you about that. Nope, Scott is.
Thank you. Going from Gyeongnam, we're playing one impressive style of football, to Incheon, who are doing the same. They're really going around things the right way, down at the bottom of the table, and trying to fight their way out by playing attacking football. They're bottom of the table, but their recent form doesn't suggest that they should be. The only problem is they're absolutely awful at the back. They are really terrible at the back. Great going forward. There's no balance in their team at all. They've scored more goals than any other team in the bottom half, scoring 39 this season. But they've conceded 56. It's huge. It's massive.
A lot.
They've shored things up lately, and they're now 4 games unbeaten, and they've had 2 clean sheets in those 4 games. So they're kind of going in the right direction. The appointment of Jorn Anderson in the summer in June was a very good thing for them. That's when they've started to turn things around. Since his appointment, they've only lost 6 games while playing a great brand of attacking football, and they've scored 24 of the 39 goals this season under his stewardship, even though he only came in June. Recent victories against Jonham and Ulsan saw them climb the table. Unfortunately, Daegu and Jonham just keep winning.
Yeah, they do.
Incheon can't drag themselves out of it because the teams around them are just playing so well at the moment. You've got to think that if Incheon keep playing the same way that they're playing, eventually one of Jonham or Daegu is going to drop off. No, okay. Their best player by a mile has probably been Magosa up top. He scored 13 goals in the league this season. His hold-up play, he can hold up the ball, he can run behind defences, he's skillful, he can finish. Without him, they would be struggling. Moon Son-min's played incredibly well.
Yep.
I've got to say Moon Son-min, or my friend back in Incheon will probably kill me. He came in for a little bit of grief from someone over the World Cup. But
I will stand behind that 2,000%.
Moon Son-min has been playing really, really well. I genuinely think that Incheon will be okay. I think they could climb further before the split. They played Pohang, Daegu and Seoul before the split, which are all incredible, not easy, incredibly winnable games. But their season's going to rely upon their form after the split when they play against the likes of Jonham and Daegu.
Yeah. Huge 6-point matches ahead for...
Yeah.
I mean, the relegation round this year is going to be really fun to watch.
Very
Because, I mean, all 5 of those games for almost all 6 of those teams are going to be very meaningful because the gap between... I mean, even right now with Gangwon in the top half, if they drop down, that gap between 7th and 12th is just very, very small right now. So it should be fun in the relegation round. I will add, however, I have eaten a little bit of crow for Moon Sun-min in league play. Still don't like him in a red shirt. Sorry.
Maybe he'll sign for Seoul next year.
Hey, they'll get promoted from the K2 at least. Up anyway for Incheon.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. Are they
I just
going
said up, yeah.
up in the power rankings even further than 5th?
I think that they're going to sort it out. I think
No.
the manager's good. They're attacking well, and
It's the great escape for them yet again. Right?
and they're used to this.
Yeah.
Right, this is their bread and butter.
Right.
They live for this part of the season.
Yeah. I think all of us that live here in the Gyeonggi area want that stadium as part of our K1 tour. So always rooting for them to stay up, if for nothing else, the stadium, but also hoping for other reasons. Unless, of course, it comes at the expense of the next team on the list. What a team. My beloved Jeonnam Dragons are up next. Not that I'm biased at all. They got here by fighting for their lives, the same way that Incheon has gotten here, because they realized they were set for the drop, and they have absolutely turned it around. They have won 3, drawn once, and lost just once in their last 5, and they were very, very close to making their first 3-match winning streak of the season, if not for letting Markow run through the entire team and score a tying goal on the last kick of the game. Not that any of us are upset about that, but the fact that they were in that game, I think, is still something worth talking about for Jeonnam, because this is a team in the past that was very contented to just see games out and let it be as it was, and they were out of that game. They had no right coming back and taking a 3-2 lead. So you take that point and you keep your chin up, because this is a team, like you were saying for Incheon, this is a team that's just really, really fighting right now, and they've been a lot of fun to watch. And that fight has got them just 6 points behind Sangju and safety in 9th place. And with so many crucial games coming up after the split, they could leapfrog right up and get back to the mid-table standings that they're used to. Perhaps most impressively of their hot streak right now is that they haven't been shut out in 5 matches. So this is a team that did struggle to score goals early on, but they've been scoring more lately, which is good because they've also conceded at least 1 goal in 11 straight matches. Yeah, so clean sheets are hard to come by. They've also been very entertaining to watch for neutrals, for those of us that like to wear yellow and black, but they've outscored their opponents 15-14 over this 5-game stretch, so it's been fun. The key player for them right now is one of the Wandersons, Wanderson Macedo. They have 2 Wandersons for folks that don't know. He has finally stepped into the goal scoring role that I think people expected him to, or that Junham needed him to. He has 5 in 5 games, and almost as importantly, he's taken the attention from opposing defenders, so guys like Hyo Young Jun and the youngster, 20 years old, Lee Sang-hyun, has had a good couple of games and looks like a promising star for the future. So hopefully Macedo can keep going the way that he has and take some attention off of those young strikers. And if they're going to go up or down, they might go down in the power rankings. The table, I think they're going to be fine. But in the power rankings, they have Ulsan and Jeonbuk up next, so that's rough. But then they have Jeju, Seoul, and Daegu before the schedule splits. So they could be okay before things split. They could get as many as 9 points out of that, but realistically 6 or 7, I think, and just staying in the fight going into the last round would be really good. And I took all 3 minutes on Junham, and I apologize for nothing.
I think they'll go down.
In the power rankings.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we have questions. Right. Well, I've got a couple on Incheon and one on Jeonnam, so I'll just go back to Incheon quickly. First, a slight correction here. Luke Evans saying, isn't Moon-Sung Min-ju to do military service? And our very own exiled from the studio, Paul Neat, says yes. So I'm assuming that has been confirmed.
Sang-ju playing red, right? So we're technically halfway.
We're not. Yeah, we're not. And they might get relegated. So we're doing quite well there. So and just some talk about Magosa and stuff. Jung Kim, if Incheon get relegated, do you think other K-League 1 teams will try to step up Magosa? Without a doubt.
I think they might anyway.
Yeah.
They should.
And then Paul Neat with a question that you may or may not want to answer. Jeonnam vs Daejeon in the playoffs, who wins?
Junham by about 12 goals.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we actually have a serious question in as well from our very own Muyal, which is a little bit better. I know a lot of writers, including me, criticise Kim In-won for current caretaker. That's Muyal, not me. Who tasted failure in Daejeon before. What do you think of him in Jeonnam?
I mean, he's doing a job right now, so it's tough to argue against results for a caretaker manager, and right now he's getting results. How much of that comes down to him, or how much of that comes down to the players really stepping up in after their manager was let go or resigned or whatever the case was? You know how it goes. I mean, like I said, results are going to speak for a caretaker manager, especially when it's actually a caretaker manager situation like this at the end of the season, unlike in Suwon and especially in Seoul, where we've had a caretaker manager for months and months and months. So for right now, it's fine. Let's see how he does to the end of the season.
Okay. I must say, he strikes me as a little bit hot-headed.
Yeah.
Whether he
Junham needs that, though. Junham needs somebody to be a little bit more fiery. So we'll see.
Okay.
He'd be a good fit at Suwon.
No, thank you.
If he can help him survive, then cheers. I don't know that I would want him for a full season next year based on his results in the past, but that was a while ago. So again, we'll see. The next couple of months, I think, or what's going to tell the tale on that.
Wow. Yeah. Well, that's all the questions coming in. There's a few comments about who would win between Daejeon and Jeonnam. I'll let you delve into those after the Facebook.
Jeonnam. It looks like it's pretty conclusive.
That laser eye surgery hasn't really... They saw you coming with that, didn't they? But yeah.
It would be interesting. I don't want the Dragons to be in that playoff, obviously, but that would be interesting.
I think Paul's a little bit short-sighted in thinking that Daejeon can actually make it to the playoffs.
Well, they're in position right now.
But let's see.
6-point gap between them and 5th. They're doing all right. Dejan, they're coming up at the expense of the next team on the... No, I don't know. But maybe, because up next we have a team that's doing extremely well of late, but is in that relegation battle. We have Daegu FC, and for the first of 3 teams in a row, Matt's going to take them.
I always take the final teams. We said in an earlier show that all they needed... Do you mind not laughing in my 3 minutes? We said in an earlier show that all they needed was a decent summer window, and they've done just that. They've played out the 2 Brazilians they signed in January, and they've replaced them with Edgar Silva and Zé Roberto, who've both really... They've done all right. They've not been bad. The fans have also come back with the help of some Cho Hyun-woo heroics in Russia. But more importantly, though, they kept their manager, Andre, which... There was a moment where I thought he was going to leave because, or they were going to get rid of him somehow because he was a rarity in this league. He was the only foreign manager for a good while, and he was struggling. And he was originally a caretaker who was given the job on a permanent basis. His job didn't look secure, but instead they've trusted him through the window. He's brought in players that have worked, and they're just going up in the league again. He's managed to overcome a slump, and it shows just what can happen if you stand by your manager. If you stand by the right manager, that is.
Key there.
But yeah, he was back to the window and he's dragged his team through the slump. He'll actually be on my shortlist for one of the managers of the season. Maybe more last season, but this season I think he's done really well with Daegu, and I only see them going up. But I'll just go on to the key player quickly. The key player is Cecina. I was going to say Cho Hyun-woo, but he's actually... Cho Hyun-woo's been absent for a while with Asian game duty, and power rankings is about recent form, so we should talk about who's actually getting them there. And Cecina, I know I say it a lot, but to me he's the K-League's answer to David Silva. I love watching him. I think he's so overlooked. Really, he's overlooked. He was with them. He's been with them for a long time. He's actually owned by Daegu as well, so he's actually a financial asset,
which is rare for them.
Yeah, normally they've loaned in Brazilians and lost, and they've gone without any fees. But yeah, he's great at making assists. And
I mean, we talked about... we talked about Gyeongnam and how well they've scouted. Also, a big hat tip to Daegu because they've scouted extremely well. A certain Suwon player named Jonathan got his start in Daegu, and
so dreamy.
Yeah, but I didn't let you get to up or down.
Up. The only way is up. I think that they've found their form, and they've won the last 3. They look good. They look good against Seoul last weekend as well. I just think they'll get into the relegation split. They're not going to get into the top half. I don't think they'll just miss out. But once they're in that split, they're just going to beat the teams below them.
I mean, and I think it's really nice because when it looked like they were going to go down the year that they'll be opening that gorgeous looking stadium next year, this is one of the teams that's finally making the move out of a vastly oversized World Cup stadium. They're opening a just truly gorgeous looking... we've seen renderings, we've seen a few of the pictures so far from the actual build, and it'll be nice for them to open that in K1 next year, which hopefully they can do. Sticking with Mr. Binns, who's always here for the top half of the table.
You've got to have experienced hands when it comes to dealing with the best clubs.
The speaker's talking to you. It's Ulsan.
Well, yeah, and surprisingly they are one of the best clubs. Surprising, unsurprising, I don't really know, but if it weren't for that lost inch on 2 rounds ago, they should be top of these rankings. They'd be flying high at the top, and in my opinion, they should be anyway, regardless of what recent form. Yeah, they would have been my top choice. So after getting knocked out of the Champions League to some club called Suwon, which evidently it happens to the very best of teams, and they shouldn't really be too ashamed of it. They've been nothing short of sensational. They've done some smart summer business, bringing in American midfielder Mix Discord. I look to you just to make sure. And former Ulsan player Lee Kun-ho has come back as well, and it's seen them strengthen significantly. They've only lost twice in 14 rounds since the World Cup, which is magnificent. And they've only lost 6 for the whole season. Which will come to a question we'll get to after I've finished speaking. Their key player is Junya Nagao. He was brought in from Daegu at the start of the season. Well, brought in from Daegu. Daegu's loan with him was cancelled, and Ulsan have brought him in. he's the third highest scorer in the league, and could be higher if it wasn't for an injury he had just before the World Cup. He's been on the score sheet in each of the last 6 games, and that's not just 6 goals, it's higher than that as well. He's just been on fire recently. He's one of the informed strikers at the moment. Up and down, up or down, well up, and in the league I can see them taking second from Gangnam, really.
Possibly. I mean, they've just been a lot of fun to watch lately. You know, Dan Croydon, who writes about them regularly, has talked about the value of Mix in the midfield. And, you know, at his height, Mix Diskerud was hands down an international player for the United States and was fantastic at pulling those strings. Had a bit of a rough stretch in MLS with NYCFC and seems to have rediscovered his form here. And obviously, as an American over here watching, I hope that they can re-sign him for next year. But I think he's just changed the dynamics there. And as you said, Lee Gun-ho has looked really good in his return. And this is all without Lee Jong-ho this year. And they might get him back for a little bit of this stretch run in good form. It's a tough injury to come back from, so we'll see. But they would be a lot of fun to watch in ACL next year if they can get one of those positions. Because this is a team that's scoring goals and just not playing the kickball that we can see sometimes. They look like they have a very cohesive plan. They move the ball really well, and they're just vicious when they get on the end of it.
I think it's surprising as well, just for their manager. Sorry, Scott, I know I interrupted you there, but Kim Do-eun, we were touting him for the sack, really. It was the FA Cup that saved his job, and I didn't like his brand of football, and he seems to have changed it, and fair play to him.
Go overtime, what you got?
I'm just very, very impressed with the way that they took the loss of Orsic in the summer.
Yeah.
He was one of my favourite players to watch in K-League, and losing him was a disaster, but they've replaced him well, and they've played well since he's been gone. Yeah,
that is a huge, huge loss to make up for. Jeonnam still hasn't, actually, a few years later, as it turns out. But yeah, it's a really good point.
I want to go through Dan, our Ulsan columnist Dan Croydon.
Let's do it.
Had a question, and I've taken the time to answer it, and I'm sure you've got thoughts on it as well. His question was...
Did you write in an answer while we're talking to people?
No. Before.
What's his question?
So Dan's was a hypothetical question. Would Ulsan be challenging for the title if they didn't have ACL? No, I've said they'd be closer, but not close enough. They lost 4 games at the beginning of the season, and that most of those were preceded by a ACL game midweek. So I've said that let's say they win those first 3 to 9 points. They wouldn't win the first one. They wouldn't win the first game because they had 10 days before to prepare for that, and they still lost it. Then no round of 16 with Suwon, where they dropped points before and after the second leg, so you could chuck 4 more points on. So we're talking about 13 points maximum that they could really theoretically have.
13 points would have them just 5 back from Jeonbuk right now.
3 back from Jeonbuk, yeah. So
math is hard.
I would counter all those points with the fact that if they're not in the ACL, they don't have the budget that they've got.
They
can't get.
Nor do they have the ambition to go out and get these players that they have.
Jeonbuk are in a league of their own, aren't they? It's Jeonbuk and then the K-League.
Yeah.
It's okay making the hypotheticals, but there's one team in the league that win it every year fair and square, apart from the 1 year that they didn't. And they're just the best team. Nobody can live with them. The only way that you can beat them is over 2 legs in a quarterfinal of a continental competition, and we just all have to live with it.
Some will live with it better than others. I've also said as well that I think that their 6-2 victory over Melbourne was actually the moment that kicked them into gear.
Yeah.
I mean, if they didn't have that 6-2, would it have actually just taken them longer to gel over fixtures? Where the ACL, they were playing more games, they got into more of a rhythm. But
and credit to them, as you said, it was Orsic, however you want to say it. He did both. There was a pretty seminal moment for them this year where they could have gone one way or the other, because there was a lot of turnover, and bringing in a key player like Lee Gun-ho to mix with Junior and see if he can do that, and then, forgive the pun 2 words later, but mix Diskerud coming in as well. Like those are a lot of moving parts to try to fit together. All very talented, clearly, but to get all of them to work together this quickly and put on a streak that's as impressive as the one that they're on now, just hats off to those involved in Ulsan.
They're the best of the rest, and they should be proud of that. There's no shame in coming second to a team like Jeonbuk.
Yeah, and anyway, so we've also got, well, from the author of the Power Rankings, Alex Lee, has got a question, but I'm going to save that until after the next one. Okay.
Shockingly, we're at the end of the list, and Matt is going to talk about Jumbo Hyundai Motors.
It's going to be a terrible day when I'm not at the end of this. So it's been a weird couple of months for John Buck, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure they belong at the top in my opinion, but they are it's still the form team in the league, right? So defeats in other competitions perhaps cloud our judgment of how good they've been, but there's no denying that they're still head and shoulders above the rest of the competition when it comes to the K-League 1. The number of fixtures crammed together means that the stinging 5-2 defeat by Pohang still feels a bit fresh in the memory, but it was quite a few rounds ago now, but it's actually a few weeks. They've only dropped 2 points in the last 5 games, dismantling Seoul, Yeongnam and Jeju without reply. But the Asian Games have cost them greatly. They are bringing through young talent. John Buck had a bit of a reputation, especially a couple of seasons ago, where they were nicknamed the old people's home in Korean, of just bringing in older players. But the truth is they actually have some really promising young talents, and they've actually built a team around the likes of goalkeeper Song Bong-kun and centre-back Kim Min-jae, who, when absent for over a month, John Buck seemed to fall apart in the big games, and you could see the difference in the Champions League second leg against Suwon when Kim Min-jae came back. He made such a difference in defence.
What a game he had last night, by the way. What a game he had.
It's fantastic. They've got these young players coming through, and they suffered from the Asian Games. They also had players going to the World Cup, but they should also know that if they recruit internationals, they have to, roll with it as well. And they were all known internationals. There wasn't any surprises there. No surprise call-ups. Key player though, I've chosen Eong. I was going to say Kim Min-jae, but Eong, he's right back. He leads the league in assists and key passes. He's quite rightly the current national team back, though who knows for how much longer. Still, he's been vital for John Buck's supply this season, especially given the absence of Kim Jin-soo. Eong was injured for over half the season last year, and we didn't really see what he could do at John Buck. But he was always reliable at Ulsan, and we've seen the Ulsan Eong playing at John Buck now, and it's working well for him. Up or down? Well, it depends if they tail off once the title is claimed, which could be in a matter of a couple of weeks now. But otherwise, I'd expect them to stay on top. But if they win it and they start fielding youngsters, then perhaps they'll tail off a bit. I'm not too sure.
I mean, at this point, though, wouldn't that be what you would want to do? Because, like you said, they could wrap up the league in a couple of weeks, and I think, given how things went last night, being out of ACL, this is a team that's going to want to just put their foot down.
They play their best when they're angry.
Yeah.
They always dismantle teams after mortifying results.
Yeah, I would not want to be in their way for the next couple of weeks. But I think after they claim the title that's been theirs for so many months now, you got to start looking at some of the bench players at this point, right?
Well, yeah, and we've seen a few of them play this year in Jeonnam before the Champions League against Buriram. So yeah, you'd hope that Chae Kyung-hee would.
Yeah. So we'll see. But as per usual, John Buck at the top of the list. Switching things up.
We've got a fair few questions in on John Buck, which we should really go through. So I first want to go through Alex Lee's question because it also links back to Ulsan, and the question is, let me pull up his question again. Who's got the better overall squad, Ulsan or John Buck? For me, without a doubt, it's John Buck.
Depth. Depth, right? Because the thing of it is, you can put out what you think is your best 11 for John Buck, and I'll take your bench and put it on any other K-League team any day of the week. I don't care which 11 you put out there to start. I'll take your bench and insert them into the starting lineup of at least 9 K-League teams. They're just... the reason that we all thought they had a very real chance and could have won the treble this year is because of that depth. To me, like if we're looking at them as a squad as a whole, that's why I would say John Buck. But if we're talking about going head-to-head, these two clubs right now over 2, 3, 4, 5 games, whatever, I don't know. That's a bit more of a toss-up for me.
Yeah, also not playing very well, but it's the depth, it's the choice, the tactical choices that Chae Kyung-hee has at his disposal if he really wants.
Yeah. Scott?
Don't make me say it. Come on. We all know it. They're the best team. Come on.
It's talking about Ulsan.
Yeah.
Well, who's better at penalties? Probably.
Well, I mean, if Jeonbuk actually practiced, they'd probably be good, right? But now, Jeonbuk are the best team. They've got the best players. They've got, 8 out of the top 10 best players in K-League in their squad. They've got the best players. They've got the best manager. They've got the best facilities. They haven't got the best fans. They've almost got it all. And they deserve to win it every year.
And not everybody can be both of us supporters at Jeonnam, all right?
Well, I mean...
Best fans in the league.
The free chicken and beer is a pretty good advertisement for Jeonnam. So.
Good perk.
Well, we do. That kind of ties into our other question from our very own James Edrupt. It's a 2-part question. So his first part was: is it the K-League One in danger of becoming a one-team league with Jeonbuk winning it every year?
I replied to this on Twitter, and I'll give the same reply now. I think saying becoming is very friendly. I think that's very optimistic for the rest of the league. I think this has been Jeonbuk's league for a long time now. The only reason it wasn't in 2016 is because they had the 9-point and financial punishment strapped on them for 2013 and all that, you know about all that if you're listening to this. And then that's what allowed Seoul to get back into it. Seoul went on a tear, and that's how 2016 went down. But if not for that, I mean, it's just Jeonbuk.
Yeah, I think that there's many one-team leagues in the world, though, that are exciting. The Premier League was won by a record margin this year. The Ligue 1 is being won by Paris Saint-Germain. Celtic have been top of the Scottish Premier League for God knows how many years. And
Bundesliga is a one-team
Bundesliga is a one-team league, but those leagues are really popular. And even if you go over to Asia as well, the Chinese Super League has been won by Guangzhou Evergrande for 6 years in a row. Yeah. Maybe not this year, but so... It's not just always... You can't just look at it as no title race, boring league, and I assume that's what this question is implying. But yeah, there is a danger of it becoming, or if it isn't already, a one-team league. But the second part I would probably put to Scott or anything is, what can other teams do to compete in?
Well, I have a lot of ideas about that, but we'll save that for another episode.
Okay.
Well, we saw a good thing last night. If you give teams a 3-0 head start, then it makes for interesting games. The only thing that I can think of, and don't call me up on it, is maybe introducing a salary cap in K-League. I'm sorry, but Jeonbuk have a lot of money. It does kind of ruin the competitiveness of the league. Jeonbuk buy the best players, they spend the most money, and it's a very, very superficial way of looking at it, but maybe a salary cap could actually make it a little bit more competitive.
Well, I mean, that's certainly going to introduce a lot more parity. Leagues that have it, MLS is probably the most famous league with a salary cap. There is parity there. You really never know who's going to win any day of the week, which can be fun, and then, they have ways to get around that. For me, and to just spoil the little cliffhanger that I left there, playoffs are a way to get around this, right? And that face is a perfect reason why we're going to have an entire show about this. But you can still reward the play during the regular season with a trophy and a spot in the ACL, and have playoffs that keep more fans interested for much longer, and give that random, weird, one-off chance that the best team in the league, which unquestionably will be the team that wins the regular season, can lose, and just make things more interesting for other fans. Because right now, if you're just a casual fan in Daegu, you're a casual fan in Gangwon, you're not going to win the league because you're not Jeonbuk, you're not Seoul, you're not Ulsan, right? So I mean, to me, there are ways around it, but as it stands right now, no. But like you said, I don't think that makes it an uninteresting league. Like, if you want to just look further down the table, the whole bottom half of this table is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Yeah. Those are all teams fighting for survival, and that's the fun that we don't get in MLS, where we don't even have relegation, right? So that's a league that's doing one thing right with the salary cap, if you view it that way, which now it's time for it to move on from that, because that's a whole other thing. But, we do have a lot of teams with a lot to play for right now. Like, those ACL spots are crucial. Like you said, for Ulsan, they're not where they are if they're not playing an ACL. So now you've got Gyeongnam, Ulsan, Suwon maybe in the league fighting for those spots. That means a lot. And then you have seriously 5 or 6 teams in the bottom half that are fighting for survival. So it can still be an interesting league, but I would still like to see more challenging.
I'm actually against the financial restriction elements of it because I just think
a Man City and Jumbo fan is against these things.
But no, I just think that
I don't.
I know it's hard. I know that other teams. I have no answer for citizen clubs. I'm sorry, I have no answer for citizen clubs, and I know Samsung have pulled out of Suwon effectively in all but name, but. There has to be more investment. Mm-hmm. There has to be more investment, whether it's marketing, whether it's players. You can say John Buck's got all the money, but they're also the only team putting money into the league. So, yeah, money is an evil. It is going to make it a one-team league, but you need other teams as well to invest. And
so here's the thing:
putting a salary cap could damage K leagues in Asia.
Yeah,
Champions Leagues. So.
Red Bull, I know you're watching. City Football Group, I know you're a big fan. We'd love to have you here.
Suwon's a beautiful city.
Suwon City actually does have a nice ring to it. You could even stay in blue.
Well, why are we talking about Suwon FC? There's already a
take them too. Great, yeah.
Anyway,
but I mean to not be shecky about it and to actually answer what you're saying. Yeah, I mean I think there needs to be more outside investment, and that was one of the things that. To just shamelessly plug it that I talked about with a couple of journalists here in Asia that I think Southeast Asia could be that market for K-League, but they're not exploring it right now. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of potential with Vietnam right now. There's a Korean manager who's a national hero in Vietnam. You're telling me we can't get some of that overlap? You're telling me there isn't one Vietnamese player that could get into the starting lineup of a K-League team right now? We can't take advantage of that?
Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, outside investment would be another answer. Yeah.
Anyway, but they're all big ideas, probably for a show a separate show sometime.
A non-power ranking show, maybe. But yeah, but by all means, if there are other things that you would like us to talk about along these lines, or if you have thoughts on how to improve the league, get those in the comments. And if we don't get to it today, we will definitely get to it in the future. Not that I have any feelings about these things. Anything else?
That's
it.
I think that's it today.
All right. But before we get out of here, for those of you that may have tuned in late, just a quick reminder that we are going to be playing some FIFA 19 very soon at Retro Game Bar. At least I will be, and you can see how the Gennum Dragons do against people playing as Man U and other 5-star teams. It's very entertaining.
Well, at least you're used to high goal affairs already in Guanyang, so...
It's true, yeah. Nobody's ever seen... Gennum put 5 past Real Madrid, and they never will. But anyway, it's going to be a lot of fun. We'll be out there October 7th, playing some FIFA and talking about K-League and everything else. But for now, I will say that up on the site, the FA Cup draw is up there right now. We've got a little bit about some potential national teamers up there right now. We've got a little bit about FC Seoul up there right now. There's a whole lot going on, including the power rankings that you just saw us run down. So if you would like to hear from the expert himself, Alex Lee, that wrote these and his reasoning behind them instead of our reasoning behind them, then go ahead and give those a read on the site. But for now, I think that's about it.
Yep.
I'm going to have Scott very unawkwardly come and turn the camera off.
Yeah.
While Matt and I strike a pose for those watching. Nope, it's down there where it says finish.
Oh no.